and welcome to Leadership Table Talk, a show designed to help you develop and improve your leadership skills and talents. I'm your host, Dr. Mary Gillam, a retired Air Force colonel and former member of the Senior Executive Service Corps with the Department of Defense at the Pentagon. I am so excited about our show today because my guest is not only a former TV producer, but an award-winning school superintendent, associate professor at several universities, to include Harvard. He was featured in an award-winning documentary depicting his efforts to reform a struggling Virginia school district. He has served on several Virginia governor-appointed task forces. Oh my goodness, his resume is extensive. I could go on and on. But in today's episode, we're going to discuss his latest project, in which he is the co-author of the book, Breakthrough Leadership: 6 Principles Guiding Schools Where Inequity is Not an Option. So please help me to welcome Dr. Marcus Newsome. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Oh, I am just so excited to have you here today. So let's just begin by telling the audience a little bit about your background.
Sure. Well, it all starts with my parents. We are from a small town in northeastern North Carolina called Ahoskie.
Yes.
My mother is one of 15 children.
Oh my goodness.
She was one of 3 sets of twins, by the way. And they were sharecroppers. And my father was an enlisted soldier, and he fought in World War II, the Korean War, and was in the Vietnam War era. And they taught my brothers and my sister and myself the importance of hard work, love for our country, and treating everyone the same. So that's the foundation, I think, of who I am.
Oh my goodness. You know, when you mentioned Ahoskie, North Carolina, I'm from North Carolina, so I know about Ahoskie. You know, I think we played them one year when I was in high school, but I do remember, you know, Ahoskie. So let me ask you this. What inspired you to pursue a career in education?
My older brother was always my mentor and my role model. And I followed him to college. Elizabeth City State University in North Carolina for undergrad school. And we went to some of the same graduate schools. He became a teacher, and so I followed his footsteps, and I became a teacher. And it's interesting that he and his wife were working in a school in Southeast Washington, D.C., and they told me there was a job opening when I was fresh out of college. And so my first year of teaching, we all taught at the same school, my brother, his wife, and myself. So you had 3 Newsomes there.
Oh my goodness.
But we went on to become principals during the same time at Prince George's County.
Oh my goodness.
And what's really unique, I think, is later on, we became superintendents at the same time in Virginia. I was in Chesterfield at the time, and he was in Danville.
Oh my goodness. Did anybody get you guys confused? Okay, which, is it both Dr. Newsomes or?
Well, you know, it's interesting. So there are 3 boys in my family and 1 girl, and my parents are so proud that all of their children were first-generation college graduates. And the 3 boys all have doctorate degrees and have all written books.
Oh my. So there is a possibility that if someone says Dr. Newsome, okay, which one?
Yeah, we all turn around.
Oh, that is so interesting. Well, let me ask, I was reading in your bio, and it did say that you had served as the superintendent of 3 different school districts. And so as we know that part of leadership is all, you know, for the most part, you know, people look at the results associated with leaders. And so as the superintendent, can you talk a little bit about some of the successes that you experienced while you were serving in that capacity?
Sure, thank you. I'd be happy to. I served as a superintendent, as you said, in 3 different districts. The first was in Newport News. And while I was there, I guess we had about 35,000 students at the time. And one of the things I'm most proud of is for the first time, we had all of our high schools that were recognized by Newsweek magazine as being among the best high schools in America.
Wow.
Part of that criteria is the percentage of students who are taking advanced placement courses. I left there and went on to Chesterfield County, where I served as superintendent for 10 years. And I guess one of the things that we should be proud of is We became the largest school district in Virginia to have all of its schools fully accredited for 3 consecutive years.
Wow.
Then we had a rough patch with the recession, and the local government and the state government cut our budget by over $100 million in a 2-year period. Almost gutted the system. We were devastated by that. And so we realized that we had to do some things differently. And so we invested in technology at the time. We became the largest purchaser of Chromebooks in America at the time.
Wow.
All of our students received Chromebooks, and we went digital. And we were recognized by the White House as one of the leaders across the country in digital education and a role model for other school systems to contact to learn how to go from a print environment to a digital environment. And then finally, I tried to retire, but somehow ended up as superintendent in Petersburg, and that was a very unique experience. Supported by the governor, members of the General Assembly, and what was neat about that, both sides of the House and the Senate, Republicans and Democrats came together to support our work to turn that school system around. And nonprofits and business organizations, government, to provide wraparound support. And it was so unique that there was a film that was produced called Petersburg Rising. And I just found out today that it won its 6th award.
Oh my goodness.
Out in Los Angeles, where a lot of the Hollywood folks go, and it won the award for Best TV Documentary.
Oh my goodness. That is so amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You heard it here. You heard it here. And you know, I actually got to see a clip of the documentary. And so at this time, I'd like to share that with you as well.
We gon' level it up.
This was the gateway of the Underground Railroad.
The largest free black community.
A lot of them came in thinking that Petersburg was like a promised land. Things were gonna be better.
It was an industrial area and it was flourishing because they had a lot of jobs.
Petersburg was an awesome city back in its heyday.
Downtown Petersburg and the stores and shopping, it was thriving.
When we lost our largest employer here, Brian Williamson, the economic situation turned for the worse.
The biggest challenge that is faced here is poverty. People go through a lot of hard times and have to rely on food stamps.
The percentage of households with a working adult is the lowest in the state.
Our communities reflect our schools reflect our communities.
Petersburg had been in school improvement for 13 years and still had yet to achieve full accreditation of all their schools. We need somebody who comes to Petersburg with a resume of accomplishment that people can look up to. We need someone who can bring us hope.
Oh yeah! All right! Hell yeah! That's tight!
Then there came Marcus Newsome, and I told him he was God sent.
Marcus Newsome really has everything you'd want. He's got a long history of being successful as a superintendent.
People follow great leaders.
He looks at this as a mission or a ministry.
He is all about children, and every decision that he makes is in the best interest of children.
I have been through a lot of principals and superintendents. Here we go again.
In their minds, based on their past experience, we'll be gone very soon as well.
Public education has really been under attack.
Petersburg has been victimized.
If you were a first-year teacher, we welcomed you and wished you the best of luck. There was no curriculum or instructions.
We didn't know who we employed. We didn't know where the dollars were going.
Petersburg, we have another problem.
The city of Petersburg went through some significant financial challenges that were just showing up right as Dr. Newsome started.
They cut the school budget.
Newsome said the city currently owes the school system $2.7 million.
Utilities were delinquent. We didn't know how much longer we would be able to keep the lights on.
You don't find prospering schools in struggling communities very often.
He has been able to grow the confidence of the business community.
We tightened our belt. we made some really wise decisions.
We went to the General Assembly.
We can't do this alone. We need our partners.
The state has been able to offer some assistance.
This is a team effort.
We encouraged a group of students to write a grant, and we won the grant right at $100,000.
We took our weakness and we really made it our strength.
We gonna level it up.
You have to invest in your children. If you don't invest now, you're going to pay for it later.
80% of this class is graduating, and they're going on to college.
Petersburg can be the shining example of what can be done.
A model for the state and the nation.
It's going to take some work.
It doesn't matter where you come from or how you start, it's how you finish.
We are rising. Yes, we are.
Well, I hope that you enjoyed that. And so let's continue on with our interview. And I'd like to ask you now about this amazing book that you've written here, Breakthrough Leadership, 6 Principles Guiding Schools Where Inequity is Not an Option. And I noticed that you are the co-author of the book. It's with Alan
Blankstein
and Lauren
Mahan. Yes.
So can you talk a little bit about their backgrounds and how did you guys actually come together to work on this particular project?
Sure. Alan Blankstein is a best-selling author.
Yes.
He has written about 20 books himself. One of his popular books, bestsellers, was Failure is Not an Option, that many people have heard of.
Yes, yes.
And Alan and I have known each other for about 20 years, and we've collaborated on a number of projects, and we've actually co-authored together in the past. The one before this was called Excellence Through Equity.
Yes.
And the co-author for that was Pedro Nagara, who is well known around this country for his work on equity. And we also contacted Lauren because we needed a research assistant, and so she served as the research assistant. But I'm continuing to work with Alan. We are still co-presenting together. We do workshops on breakthrough leadership. I just finished a series a couple of weeks ago, and we'll probably continue that for leaders in this region.
Wow, that's wonderful. So when it comes down to the title of the book, which is amazing in and of itself, what is breakthrough leadership? How would you define that?
Breakthrough leadership is defined in the book as a transformational leadership style.
Yes.
Where leaders go beyond the status quo. They are courageous enough to try something new to get a result that had never been accomplished before.
Yes. Short and to the point. That is so awesome. So when it comes down to why you guys, you talk a little bit more about what's in the book itself in terms of why you wrote the book and all of that stuff. What actually led or drove you guys to write this particular book?
Sure. Well, it's interesting. I'd mentioned the film Petersburg Rising,
yes.
and it was scheduled to premiere in March of 2020. And the couple of days before the premiere, the governor closed down everything.
Yes.
And so it could not premiere. And so this publisher from Corin asked us to write a book. And Alan and I felt like we wanted to make a difference to help educators and to help leaders navigate this new environment because no one had ever seen anything like this in our recent history. And so we talked to leaders from around the country to find out what they were doing to try to find the magic sauce, the special sauce for success. And we included these interviews in this book and many of my experiences as a school leader and as a superintendent and some of Alan's, and we call them case stories, not case studies. Case stories. They're stories about real life experiences from leaders around the country as well as myself. And we wanted as schools would reopen, we wanted them to have a roadmap and sort of a instructional guide on how to reboot schools and how to deal with learning loss, socio-emotional learning, all of the stressors that came along with COVID. And so that was the motivation behind it.
Oh, that is awesome. You know, when I look at the title again, it's Breakthrough Leadership, 6 Principles Guiding Schools Where Inequity is Not an Option. And a key word there, inequity. So how would you define that?
So we talk about equitable communities, communities where organizations and people join together to provide wraparound support to level the playing field for all students so that every student can succeed. Regardless of their socioeconomic status, their race, their background, or their zip code. And when communities can do that, we call the people who guide that, who set the vision, work with the community to establish the goals and the expected outcomes. We call these people breakthrough leaders. Again, to accomplish something that the community has not seen before.
Do you think your background, when you're talking about your parents and your upbringing and so forth, helped to influence your desire to want to make sure that there was equitable training and education available for all? Do you think your background contributed to that?
Certainly. It's in my DNA.
Yes.
You know, I mentioned northeastern North Carolina. Well, in the early 60s, when I was a young kid growing up, we called that the Jim Crow South. But my father was in the military, as I'd mentioned, and we traveled quite a bit. And so we had the opportunity to move out of the Jim Crow South. We actually spent time in Georgia and Alabama. We also spent time overseas in Europe and in other parts of the country and in New York and other places. And very often my brothers and my sister and I were the only black kids in our class. And some of the things that we went through, I would not want to see other kids go through. And, you know, I call them blind spots. I don't know that people treated us differently because they intentionally wanted to do that or they just didn't know any better at the time. One of the things we have to do now is to help people to understand some of the things that we do, we don't do intentionally, but we do because we haven't been educated.
Yes.
And so we try to help people understand that in the book as well.
Oh, that is awesome. Now, you talk about the 6 principles guiding the schools.
Yes.
Can you kind of go into detail with some of those principles, just maybe a few of them?
Yeah. So I talked about communities, and so the first principle talks about the pillars of the community for equitable outcomes, starting with vision. And then we talk about data-driven decisions that promote continuous improvement. A lot of people make decisions based on hunches or based on emotions.
Yes.
And it's not guided by data.
Right.
It's not guided by facts. And you know,
so did you get any pushback on that when you know, a lot of times when we ask, where is the data? Like you said, you don't want to see people making decisions and they don't have anything to sustain it. So it's like, okay, where's the data? So did you get pushback at all when you guys were pushing for, you know, that is one guiding principle that we need to have data to sustain or where we want to go and not just, okay, your hunch, because I got a hunch too, you know?
Yeah. Well, you know, it's interesting. I think I see one of the greatest breaches in that is in politics.
Oh, yes.
Because people often want to align with a political party. They feel an obligation to stand on a certain principle regardless of what the facts say, even though they know differently.
Yes.
Because I know people that I've worked with in the past who have gone into elective office. I have seen them change to support a party. But a lot of our work, we have supported legislation that has brought both parties together. Good. But you know, I will tell you, I would like to share an example of inequity that I experienced as a superintendent, just to show you how this works, and it's around data. When I first came to Chesterfield County, I was looking at the achievement data, and I noticed the algebra scores. And I noticed that when I looked at students who, because algebra is kind of a gateway course into college.
Yes.
And so you want every student to have algebra, obviously, early on in this. The earlier they get it, then the sooner they can take advanced mathematics courses. And I noticed that in middle school, only 16% of Hispanics were enrolled in algebra in middle school, of those who were enrolled, and about 13% of Black Americans, and about 4% of students who were identified as economically disadvantaged. And so I asked the community, is there something in the DNA of these economically disadvantaged children that causes them not to be qualified to take algebra the way their counterparts? And so we had this very courageous, very tough conversation, and there was some pushback. But eventually, people came on board, and so we became the first school system, certainly we believe in Virginia, that provided algebra in middle school for 100% of our students prior to going to high school. Now, you have to make sure they have the prerequisites, and so we started in 4th grade with accelerated mathematics. We doubled up in 6th and 7th grade, and we felt like it was an overwhelming success. But again, it all started from reviewing the data.
That is awesome, the data. What does the data say? Okay, can you talk a little bit more about maybe some of your other principles that you recommended in the book?
Well, we talk about sustainable leadership.
Oh, yes.
When we look at schools and even communities that have this high rate of turnover in leadership, we see that sometimes that turnover prevents them from getting footage and stability. So for example, when I was in Petersburg, they had, I believe, 7 superintendents in 15 years. So that's like every other year you're changing superintendents. When I was in Chesterfield, which was a very stable school system, we only had 2 during that time, and I was there for 10 years. Wow. And so we were able to implement initiatives and to see them through.
Yes, absolutely.
And then to train and develop the people who would then replace you.
Yeah, yes.
Which is critically important to organizations as well as communities.
Good sound leadership practices.
Yes, right, and you need institutional knowledge.
Yes, absolutely. Oh my goodness, that is awesome. I just cannot believe that there would have been such a large turnover, prior to your getting there. I want to make sure that I give you an opportunity to talk about some of the other things that you're doing. So I just wanted to make sure the audience for your particular book.
Yes.
Who is that?
Primarily, it was targeted for teachers and school leaders, but we believe there's something in this book for everyone.
Yes.
So for business leaders, for community organizers, for elected officials, for executives, we think they could all benefit from this book.
This is awesome. I just really love that I got my copy of it and I've just been going through it and stuff. And but I also wanted to ask you, because I know you've retired from being a superintendent, but you're still involved in other things, especially in terms of leadership development and stuff. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, some people never retire. We just call it repurposed. So I'm repurposed. So I still work with leaders in Virginia. I am the director of the Virginia Superintendent's Leadership Academy.
Yes.
I actually work with the Virginia Association of School Superintendents to develop this program, and basically it's professional development and training for current superintendents. So we have superintendents in our academy who are in their first year as a superintendent. We have some who are in their 15th or 16th year. I organize all of the curriculum. I develop the curriculum, all of the speakers. But aside from that, my faith is very important to me, and so I've taken on a greater leadership role, and I've recently been appointed as the president of the National Bible College and Seminary, and the chair of the National Christian Academy Board of Education, and some other duties that give me a very busy but yet fulfilled life.
Dr. Newsome, I just don't know where the time has gone, but you are the perfect person to actually do the kinds of things that you're now doing at the National Church of God in terms of leadership and so forth. But again, I want to just thank you for taking the time out of your very busy schedule to be with us today. And I want to thank you, our listening audience, for watching our show. And I hope that you've been inspired by our guest today, because, you know, when it's all said and done, in closing, I would like to say this: transformation of our education system so that everyone can learn equitably is essential to our survival as a nation. It is when we work together to create a space where all students can thrive, we will ensure that we have leadership not only in the classroom, but ready for the boardrooms around the world. Again, thank you for watching today's show. This is Dr. Mary Gillam, and I'll see you again next time. Bye-bye for today.